There is one in your book, the Vibe model, deals with personal branding. So, how can women engineers use it to build a personal brand?
Personal branding can be the outcome of our own investment in our personal development plan. We all want to improve, so we all have a personal.
When we think about personal branding, we often think about creating a unique identity that resonates with our audience. It's about showing up as the best version of ourselves, being authentic, and standing out in a crowded, outlined space. But what does having a personal brand mean, and why is it so important in today's digital age? In this episode, I'm thrilled to welcome Dr. Jayshree Seth, Chief Scientist Advocate and Corporate Scientist at 3M, with over 31 years of experience and a stellar reputation as an inventor, innovator, author, and thought leader. She'll be talking about her groundbreaking Vibe model for building a personal brand, sharing insights from her books, and practical strategies for engineers to stand out, thrive, and make an impact. If you want to take control of your career, this conversation is for you. I am your host, Tiffany Tichy, and this is the Women in Engineering podcast. And with that, let's jump right into today's episode. Now it's time to jump right into the main segment of our episode. Today, I have with me Jayshree Seth. Jayshree, welcome to the Women in Engineering podcast.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me.
Yes. Well, let's go ahead. Can you share a bit about yourself, your career journey from earning your PhD in chemical engineering to becoming Chief Science Advocate and Corporate Scientist at 3M?
Well, I grew up in India on the campus of an engineering institution. My dad was a professor, and all the kids in town, we were just encouraged to go into engineering. And I never thought of myself as what I thought was the science and engineering type, but I just went along and went into engineering and kind of going through the motions, not feeling it, because I had always wanted to, sort of help people and improve lives and make the world a better place. And I really couldn't make that connection with the science and engineering that I was studying and the process and all of that. It was in graduate school that I really hit rock bottom during my master's. I'm like, is this what I wanted to do? And so I was doing a theoretical modeling project and nobody explained why it was important and all that. So I said, you know what? I got to do something where I know that I'm improving something, somebody, some benefit. And so I switched my projects and went into an experimental project where I was developing diamond-like coatings that'll make the tools last longer. I mean, I could make that connection and it really lit a fire under me. And then I was given a summer internship at 3M. I did a summer internship there and I was like, wow, this is great. And when I went back, I graduated and got a full-time position at 3M. And that was almost 32 years ago. And I rose to the level of corporate scientist, which is the highest level you can attain as a scientist at 3M. I'm the fourth woman and the first woman engineer to ever achieve this level. And so it all worked out for me. And the reason is because there was an emphasis on collaboration. There was this culture of empowerment, and there was a communal context of improving lives. And I didn't know that's exactly what I needed. So I was very successful because I would find problems to solve and I would solve those problems working with others. And in 2018, I was asked to be the company's first ever chief science advocate. And people are like, what is that role? Nobody knew because there is no such role anywhere. It's the first ever. And the reason we created this role is we wanted to understand the public perception of science. And a survey was done, 14 countries, 1,000 respondents per country. And what we found is that science was pretty much behind the scenes. It was underappreciated and taken for granted. In fact, 4 out of 10 said if science didn't exist, their lives would be no different. And they were taking the survey on their laptops and mobile phones. So you clearly know that that is the problem. They don't understand that all this science and the application and decades of scientific research goes into giving them the gadgets that they so like. So We are all about science. We're science applied to life. That's our brand promise. We wanted to make sure we advocate for science. And so that's why I was given this role. So my journey, Tiffany, is from not the science type to chief science advocate. And today I call myself a scientist, an engineer, an inventor, an innovator, an advocate, a thought leader. And so it's been quite the journey.
I said, wow, you are amazing. I mean, to hear your journey is amazing. And so I'm excited to continue to learn more from you and everything too. So I am so excited to hear about this. With over 80 patents and 31 years of experience, how has innovation and problem solving shaped our career as an inventor and thought leader?
I would say it has completely shaped my career as an inventor and a thought leader. Because I mentioned to you that in my PhD, I was working on diamond like films. But I didn't tell you that when I came to 3M, I was working on baby diapers. So I went from diamonds to diapers. And it didn't matter that I wasn't working in an area that I had my PhD in, because I'd already figured out how to reinvent myself, because I told you I switched from my master's to my PhD. So what I realized is that in order to solve problems, you just have to have enough context about how to identify the problem to solve. Then you have to educate yourself on the content, and then the concepts emerge. And so I have gone area after area after area, solving problems exactly using this and working with great, wonderful people who know how to solve those problems, right? So I really like building this context and identifying the problems to solve, and then working with the team to solve for that customer need or the market trend or the technology building block. And it has shaped everything I do. And it's the lens through which I look at everything. In fact, it is also the lens through which I looked at this role of chief science advocate when I was given that role. That was a problem to solve at many levels for me, because nobody knows what that job is because it didn't exist. So I had addressed it the same way, understood the context, and then broke it down. So in this case, and I write a lot about this in my books, it was basically A, B, and C. A is about raising the awareness and appreciation and acknowledgement of science and moving people from the apathy that they may feel. B is about breaking down barriers and biases and boundaries and beliefs, things like, oh, I'm not a genius, science is not for me, or I'm a girl, I can't be an engineer, those kinds of things. And C was about communication, communication, communication with a context that people can see and appreciate. And so to me, having that innovative thinking, it's something that has shaped everything I do.
And that's key. I love how you said that innovation has shaped you. So it's allowed those to be able to learn so much from you. The fact that you've had that experience with it. And so you talk about your books. Can you tell us about your trilogy of books, the motivation behind them, and how you've contributed to supporting women in STEM?
Yes, my trilogy. It's right here behind me. It basically came about in 2020. That was a rough year, to say the least. The pandemic, the social justice unrest, and I'm in St. Paul, Minnesota, and maybe everybody remembers what happened at Memorial Day weekend in Minneapolis, and that was really raw and revealing for me. I'm not Black, I'm not white, but I am a highly educated South Asian immigrant. What is my role in this? And how is it that I'm not aware of all the systemic issues that exist? So, I read everything that was recommended, caught myself up on all the history, looked at the documentaries, and then it was just despair, right? And then I thought, okay, I want to be productive with purpose. So what can I do, right? So I decided that I can take all the essays I write on many different topics, and we can pull them together in a book. And then all the sales proceeds from the book can go for a scholarship for underrepresented women in STEM, Black, Latin, Indigenous. And I cold called Society of Women Engineers CEO Karen Horting. And bless her heart, I had prepared all of these things to justify why I want to do this, how they can partner with me, blah, blah, blah. I didn't even get into it before she said, done. Consider it done, Jayshree, because they also felt they needed to be productive with purpose as this was going on. So it was a wonderful partnership. And I had known of Karen and had seen her at a event at the Society of Women Engineers. I was the closing keynote for Celebrate SUI in 2019. So the reason why I mention that is sometimes these connections really can spark something later in life, right? So the first book came about, and it's published by SUI, and it's called Engineering Footprints, Fingerprints, and Imprints. And it laid the foundation, exploring these themes of personal development, authentic leadership, making a meaningful impact, STEM advocacy, why it is important, etc. And then I got the opportunity to give the Silas Ethics lecture at Georgia Tech. And Tiffany, you won't believe this. Out of the hundreds of colleges that the student who was the first scholar from the sales proceeds of book one was going, guess which college they were going to? Georgia Tech. So I was like, this is a sign. And I went there, I got to meet them. And, we go through our entire lives thinking one person cannot make a difference. I will tell you, one person can make a difference. Because here was this person that I was seeing. And I wrote the book. People joined in. SWE published it. And this whole group has now allowed the scholarship for this student who's going to become an engineer as a result. And so it was really a emotional experience. And on my flight back, I called my husband and I said, oh, I cannot stop here. I'm writing another book. So that's how Engineering Fine Print came out. This is the second book, and this takes us deeper, encouraging us to examine the fine print within ourselves: feelings, identities, needs, and experiences. FINE. I love acronyms. So that is the catalyst for purposeful action and self-realization. Now, with 2 books, we had 5 scholars, and we also had a lot of requests for workshops around the frameworks that I had developed, all these mental models and processes. And so what we decided for the 3rd book, the final in the trilogy, is to take all these insights and strategies, including those that are in the first 2 books, and then put them into practice. So the 3rd book is actually a hands-on guide. It has suggested reflections and actions, and it is really designed to help the reader construct a personalized blueprint for success, step by step, so they can have self-discovery and growth. And my hope is that these mental models and frameworks really give a tangible blueprint for a joyful and purposeful STEM journey. And what I mean by that is developing your skills, nurturing your talent, building your expertise, and cultivating your mindset. And if you don't catch my drift, that's the real STEM, as I like to say: skills, talent, expertise, and mindset. So that is book 3. And it is, for your viewers, that's a lot of stuff in there. So hopefully people can support it.
All right. Well, talk to us and tell us what inspired you to create mental models and frameworks for this, diverse skills like storytelling, ideal generation, and personal branding.
Well, I simply found all of these to be very important as you navigate an engineering career. And that's why I wrote about them in the book, because, like I said, the real STEM is skills, talent, expertise, and mindset. And I just tried to boil it down to the basics, make them memorable, and I use my own experiences and discussion that I have with, peers, with mentees and others. And I try to focus on key concepts and context that is essential for this personal and professional development in today's world, So, for example, in book 4, the section 1 is simply about getting the job done. And so I give you tips and tricks, practical strategies to enhance, problem solving, ideation, communication, etc. Section 2 is for advocating for diverse perspectives, and I talk about trends and tactics. So how do you empower each of us to create a more inclusive and innovative STEM system, ecosystem with a robust talent pipeline? The 3rd section is about developing leadership attributes. So I give tasks and templates to focus on the essential qualities of effective leadership, beyond your functional expertise, so that you can have actionable approaches to really become a leader. And then finally, in the last section, investing in self-growth, I give tools and techniques, and it's all about personal development. It is really the toolkit for a mindset of of continuous growth and self-discovery. And this is the intersection of those four key elements: skill, talent, expertise, and mindset, which I found are pivotal for success in both personal and professional realms. So they give this framework that really empowers individuals to navigate challenges and seize opportunities. And then the acrostic frameworks in the third book also serve as the draft blueprint worksheet. So you can actually do self-assessment, growth exercise. And then that's really at the heart of this book's immersive experience, so that you can have your own unique journey through it. But I think all of these were very important as I navigated my own career.
I love it. I love it. This is great outlines. The fact that you said there's a workbook, like all of that tied with it is amazing. And I love the partnership that you had with Society of Women Engineers with it as well. Now, on the topic of framework, there is one in your book, the vibe model. And I hope that's how you call it, the vibe model, which deals with personal branding. So, how can women engineers use it to build a personal brand?
Yes, I love vibe actually, because as I was talking to more and more younger demographic, there was a lot of question about personal branding. And I frankly hadn't thought about it that much. And many of my peers might even give it the eye roll. It's like, because there's a discomfort associated with this term. But I think it is because it seems like you're doing self-promotion and you're technical. You're an engineer. It's more about the technical substance and less about marketing self-promotion. And teams is how you work in your workplace. And so the whole idea of overtly committing to, me can be potentially detrimental to that group cohesion. So given all of that, but also the generational shifts at the workplace and the very fact that the workplace has evolved, I wanted to explore, like, really, what can I say about personal branding? Because so many people are asking about it. So that's the honest truth. I delved deep into this topic. I read the scholarly research. I read the popular media. And then I developed my own thinking around it. So after reviewing all these articles, what I realized is personal branding can be the outcome of our own investment in our personal development plan. We all want to improve, so we all have a personal development plan. Let's just call the personal branding an outcome of that. So you can remove that ick factor from it. And everyone does and should invest in personal development. And that is the take on personal branding I was quite comfortable with. Because I also read somebody said, you know what? You may think that you're not doing any branding, but people experience the brand called you. So whether you like it or not, there is a brand out there. And you may think you have a certain desired brand. Others experience your actual brand. So you got to think about it a little bit, right? So in order to develop this framework, I thought, okay, let's just first go to brand. What is a brand? And then I thought, okay, at least there's 4 elements. There's the voice of the brand, the image of the brand, the Nike swoosh and the Apple and this and that. There's a backstory to it. And then there's an overall brand experience. So that's good. Voice, image, backstory, and experience. VIBE, vibe. But is that enough? Is that enough for engineering? Is that enough for people engaged in R&D? Is that enough for technical people? Actually, if you think about it, the voice for technical people is anchored in what you know from a functional perspective. But in order to truly expand your voice and continue to build a brand, visibility becomes important. Because it is the visibility that amplifies your brand and what you know. So it's not just voice, it's voice and visibility. Now let's move on to image. Image is very much not about the aesthetics and how you look, maybe in certain jobs, but really it is way more than that, than how you present yourself visually. It is more about the tangible impact of how your competence, your engineering competence shows up. So it works towards building your image, your reputation, but it is the tangible proof of your impact. So it's not just image, it's image and impact. Third element, backstory, great. Backstories are great, right? Where you went and where you studied and where you're from. But, it is not just about all of that. It is about your everyday behaviors. everyday behaviors are really the cornerstone of personal branding. That's the anchor that secures you to your story, right? So behaviors are important. It's not just the backstory, how you show up every day. And then finally, E is experience. It's great, the experience people have, but really what will underscore the brand experience for those who interact with you is also your exposure, your expertise, your soft skill and skills. So that is important. And so that's how the vibe model became in my mind. For normal brands, like the shoes you buy or the phone you buy or the computer you buy, sure, it can be voice, image, backstory, and experience. But for technical folks, it is about your visibility, which is anchored in your authentic voice, your image that is grounded in your impact, your backstory coming alive through your everyday leadership behaviors, and the experience others have as they interact with you. So voice and visibility, image and impact, backstory and behaviors, experience and exposure. That is a good vibe.
Ooh, that's good. Ooh, this makes you want to go read some more just from that touch. I mean, you're dropping gems. I love it. I love it. This is good. This is
Perfect.
good. So this makes you want to go. Make sure you read those books. I mean,
Yes,
that's
and it
just a
has
piece
the
of
whole
it.
framework. It prompts you to think about where your voice is and where's your visibility. It
Mhm.
prompts you to think about how you would go about increasing your visibility, and it anchors it all in personal development.
Mm. That's awesome. That's awesome. So talk to us. What role does communication play in establishing a personal brand, especially for women engineers?
Well, communication plays a role in everything. So not just personal brand, but everything. Think about, I just go back to the basics. Why do you communicate? You're communicating with someone, you're either interacting with them, you're instructing them, you're informing them, you're influencing them, you're inspiring them. Communication is key. So whether it's your voice or your visibility, your image or your impact, your backstory or behaviors, and your experience or exposure. So all elements of the vibe model, communication is key.
And I think that's what we have to realize, I talk about that with engineers as well, just in general. Communication, you got to be able to communicate. We all thinking analytical, but you got to be able to communicate. So, definitely communication is across the board. So, thank you for breaking that down. Now, in your opinion, how can women engineers overcome challenges like imposter syndrome or self doubt when working on their personal brand?
Self-doubt is very natural. And in the book, I talk about what I found in literature as key elements of building a personal brand. And they are reflexivity, agency, and differentiation. So there's a scholarly article that I reference in there. But basically, what it means is you have to reflect where you are and where you want to be in terms of your brand. So it's about you. It's about what you want in terms of your brand, because it's the personal development piece. So if there is an imposter, you have to reflect upon that and say, where do you want to be in terms of your brand, and address that head on. Second piece is taking action and figuring out what your own unique capabilities are that you want to build. So again, you have to confront that imposter because you're in the process of building this brand. And those two things will allow you to identify what it is that can differentiate you. But the secret weapon in this process is the principle of agency. It is the active role an individual can play in defining their own narrative. So you have to consciously understand, what are my attributes, be more authentic in that, and it allows for strategic positioning when you've had so many different identities and people and noise, right? So it is about thinking to yourself who you are, who you want to be, how do you want to project yourself, and what am I going to do about it? And that process, I think, helps to counter the imposter or the hesitance that we may all feel. And I think it comes to everybody. Everybody has it. So we got to normalize those feelings because everybody has it. Now, one thing that was truly important for me when I thought that what I'm doing is building a personal brand is I realized that as an engineer, as a product developer, if I have a better personal brand, it uplifts the entire technical community as we are communicating with marketing or manufacturing or sales. And so that was another piece that helped me address some of the imposter or any of those sensations or feelings, that I am doing it for the entire community because it uplifts everybody. In fact, in the book, I say a rising vibe lifts all boats. So reflect on what are your unique strengths, articulate it, seek feedback, demonstrate some of the things you want to demonstrate, and continually learn. So don't let that imposter get to you, and be who you want to represent. In fact, I would highly recommend people watch my TEDx talk on the topic of reframing this context to drive purpose. And I talk about that, when I was offered the role of chief science advocate. And the first thing that comes is that imposter saying, remember, you were not the science type, and now you're going to be the chief science advocate. So how did I address that? By reframing it to connect it with my purpose. And that's important.
Mm. That's good. I saw how you slid in that you a TEDx speaker and how you tied in that with what what we've been talking about. So make sure we check out the TEDx talk. I mean, that's amazing. That's amazing. You're a powerful woman. I love it. Powerful individual. And so thank you for how to deal with the imposter syndrome. I love it, and the self-doubt. So thank you for sharing that. Now, how do you see the intersection of engineer expertise and personal branding impacting leadership opportunities for women in engineering?
Very, very much so, because just imagine, would you get noticed otherwise? Maybe you'll get noticed, but active investment in your own development plan just increases your chances. That's all. So you are enhancing your visibility in a credible manner. You are cultivating a good reputation. You can assert your agency, and all of that can attract advancement opportunities, enrichment opportunities. So very much it impacts, because remember, personal branding, the flavor we are giving it is personal development. And anytime you develop yourself, you're going to increase your chances.
Mm, that's good. That that development, continually learning is important. Now, as we close out, what final piece of advice can you give to women engineers looking to build their personal brand and make an impact in their field?
I think one thing that really helped me, and I learned this much later in life, is the idea of thought leadership. And so I would say, in order to build a personal brand and make an impact in the field, try to think of yourself as a thought leader. And what I mean by that is let's take a step back. At some level, every leader is or should be a thought leader, because leaders are expected to, develop the perspective and influence other. But thought leadership is not about selling products. It's really about empathy, education, and engagement with an issue or a trend or an area that resonates with people. So whatever area you are in, study and understand the landscape so that you can lay a solid foundation of your knowledge and build that credibility as a thought leader. Develop and refine and provide a perspective from your vantage point. This gives authenticity. As you gain more confidence, amplify your voice, increase your visibility by reaching a wider audience. And when your circle grows, it is important to build meaningful relationships, fostering connectivity. And then finally, you can kindle knowledge by sharing information, asking thought-provoking questions, sparking curiosity in others. And what it does, it perpetuates a cycle of learning, action, innovation. So if there's any advice I want to give people, it's like, try to be a thought leader. Try to lead with your thoughts, and then leadership automatically follows, or at least that did in my case. And if you're interested, that itself is an acronym. I call it SPARK, in order to become a thought leader. S is for scan, scope, and study the area you're in. P is to provide perspective. A is to amplify and advocate. R is for reach out and reinforce relationship. And K is for kindle curiosity.
Wow.
Spark.
Just spark. I love it. I love it. And it helps with the acronyms, and it helps us remember it from vibe to spark. I mean, you're amazing. I love it. And it's a way to put it in layman's terms to make sure we understand it is and how it ties in with all that we're doing, especially as women and engineers. So thank you so much. You have dropped gems. You have dropped so much wisdom as far as your knowledge and everything. So thank you so much for being a great guest on the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And all the best to all your listeners. And go get them.
Thank you for listening. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast so you won't miss our upcoming episodes featuring interviews with inspiring women engineers, discussions about industry trends, and much more. Go to womeninengineeringpodcast.com where you will find a summary of the key points discussed in today's episode, as well as links to any of the resources, websites, or books mentioned during this episode. Until next time, may your engineering endeavors be as remarkable as the women whose stories we're sharing. Stay curious, keep innovating, and engineer a better future.